Hello, NACA family. I'm Daniels-Haltom, a candidate for NACA Executive Vice President. This video is about pay. No matter where you work, if it's at a federal contract tower, a DoD facility, a flight service station, Region X workspace, or in our FAA air traffic control facilities, pay is important to you. And it's important to us as well at Team NDJH. We know our members aren't going to fall for hot air or rhetoric as it relates to pay. They want a plan. We think that's where we differ from other candidates. We do have a comprehensive plan to attack our pay. It's a multi-pronged approach, so let's walk through it. One of those prongs is to use legislation. We have to use legislation to see if we can address the federal pay cap. We have to be wise in doing so, but also we need to look at the DOL wage determination for air traffic control. The DOL wage determination sets the minimum that an air traffic controller can be paid. Raising the floor has a positive effect on raising the ceiling for air traffic control pay. We have to have air traffic controllers paid appropriate and commensurate with the outstanding work that we do for this country. Working alongside our legislative efforts should be being our own media or using the existing media to better tell the story of air traffic control. We need to display to the public the hardships that we endure to provide them the service that we provide. They need to understand that it's not just a pilot that gets them from point A to point B, but it's several thousands of air traffic controllers that provide a safe and expeditious flow of traffic so that they can get to their destination safely and efficiently. One might ask why that's important. Well, when we get to negotiations, we need public sentiment on our side. They're going to show our pay and say that we're already overcompensated and we need the public to be behind us, supporting us when we have the all-important fight of addressing our pay. That leads us to the next thing, our term negotiations. There's two types of terms, full term and midterm negotiations. A full term is when the CBA is open. We all know that the air traffic control slate book contract cannot be opened until 2026. Well, does that mean we sit on our hands and don't work to improve pay until 2026? Absolutely not. That's over 2 years away before we could address pay if that's the posture that we took. Instead, we use midterm negotiations. Well, how do I know that's possible? Well, in the history of our organization, we've used it several times, but right now, currently, there's an MOU that's not being utilized to its maximum potential. In July of 2016, when we signed the slate book CBA, we also signed an Appendix A MOU. Appendix A is the complexity formula for terminal and en route facility pay. In layman's terms, it's how our facility pay is set on an individual basis. So, why does that matter to you? Well, in that MOU, there were 12 recommendations, jointly approved and recommended by the National Validation Team from both NACA and the FAA. I can't go through all of the recommendations. It's available to you in the MOU, but let's go through a few of them. One of them was a ground complexity multiplier. The ground complexity multiplier took into account the acreage of an airport, the complexity associated with taxiing aircraft to and from the runway, and that would be added on to the already existing complexity multipliers. Well, places like Washington National, DCA, would absolutely have benefited from that multiplier being in place, and it could have potentially saved them from downgrade in 2018. Well, San Francisco Tower is another airport that works on essentially a postage stamp, almost nowhere to go when you land or want to depart that airport. Perhaps San Francisco could be an ATC 11 or ATC 12, as we well know they deserve to be, if that was actually enacted. What other recommendations were there? Well, there was a recommendation to decrease the terrain and obstacle multiplier in Appendix A for facilities, taking it down from 4,000 feet to 2,000 feet, getting our tower facilities an opportunity to get that multiplier when they work around difficult terrain and obstruction that they don't have right now. Another multiplier that would affect our terminal radar facilities was a special use airspace multiplier. Going in and out of MOAs would give account. Places like Jacksonville, Pensacola, JCF, just to name a few, would absolutely benefit from having that multiplier to actually capture the complexity of the work that they do for en route it was things like counting VFRs properly, getting accredited for the work that you already do. These multipliers were not difficult to incorporate into our existing complexity multiplier. And why are they being held up? Well, they're being held up because of Abacus. And you've heard that Abacus won't be available or ready until 2030. So a CBA that was signed in 2016 and the benefits of it won't be felt until 2030, we think that's far too long. Why is that being held up? I think it's because of a lack of creativity and ingenuity by those that are the administrators of the National Validation Team or those that are running Abacus. Since 2019, that's been Rich Santa and Mick Devine. While I know people will point to that and say, Jamal, that's unfair, it's the absolute truth. If you want to work these positions, you have to be willing to do all that it takes to increase pay. When the agency came and told us that they had an inability to fund Abacus, we should have quickly pivoted and asked to implement the recommendations that existed and have our controllers properly compensated for the work they're doing. It takes that type of knowledge and know-how to pounce on an opportunity to improve pay for our membership. But it doesn't stop there. That's just one element that we can get through an MOU. What MOUs would Nick Daniels and myself propose to the agency? Quite a few, in fact, related to pay. One of them is a Class Delta multiplier. We know that we have several facilities where Class Delta airspace. Class Delta airspace is increasingly difficult. You have only to establish two-way communication to come into the airspace, and our controllers are inundated with airplanes and not getting a multiplier for it. Just for an example, Class Bravo gets a 25%. Class Charlie and Terces get 10%. Class Delta gets 0. Let's imagine it was 7 or 5% for our Class Delta airspace. What would the TCIs do? Where would the FPL levels for those facilities go? I believe it would go up. I believe it would have absolutely had an opportunity to save downgrades. We've seen an increase in level 4 facilities from 12 in 2018 to 20 in 2024. I think that having these multipliers such as this incorporated would have absolutely given an opportunity to save those facilities from downgrade. We'd also propose changes and enhancements to our longevity pay. The 1.6 has served us well, but we know that that needs to increase with time. And additionally, longevity bonuses for those who stay at facilities for increments of 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Those people who either by choice or due to the failures of the INSEP cannot leave a facility should be compensated. Another MOU that we propose is the elimination of AG pay. Let's have our controllers start at their first developmental pay setting. What this would do is eliminate the hardship associated with setting up a house when you first come to a location and allow them to focus solely on air traffic control. The agency is eventually going to pay this amount anyway, and having our pay restricted by the agency's ability or willingness to train our employees is something that we need to get beyond. Doing so will free their minds up to do the job that they were hired to do. In the history of our organization, we have had times where we use a blanket air traffic control incentive pay. We would also propose an MOU to bring that back. Air traffic control incentive would not just be for FAA air traffic controllers, but for all air traffic controllers. That would be our proposal. How do we go about that and how do we justify that? This is a specialized career field that needs to be identified for what it is. We'd also look at Saturday premium pays and introduce MOUs to account for that. Look, as the world has changed, Saturdays are as important to our members as Sundays are. We can't promise that all of these things will be enacted, but what we can say is that you will know and we'll demonstrate that we made proposals and worked our absolute hardest to ensure that those proposals were agreed upon. You can't do it if you don't even start. If you're waiting for a full-term negotiations and giving up 2 years of pay for our members, then you're not doing our members a service. We at Team NDJH believe that our members are worthy of that service and will fight every day to improve pay, benefits, and compensation. We just won't talk about it, we'll be about it. We're asking for your vote so that we can get to work immediately in doing so. These ideas don't just come from us. They come from our over 160 facility visits, sitting with members and getting their ideas and turning those ideas into MOUs so that we could propose them to the agency. We believe in this profession, we believe in you, and we ask for your vote. Please cast a ballot for Team NDJH, and you will see that we will work tirelessly to increase pay, benefits, and compensation for our membership.